Hello and welcome to the NEC Youth Rep Hustings. So basically, I'm Tommy. We're here to basically help you decide who to nominate, who to vote for. And I'm now going to go on to Janine. I'm horrible with names, so if I miss someone's name up. So if I mess someone's name up, it's not my fault. So we're on to Janelle now.
Okay, so what we're going to do is each candidate will have 45 seconds to answer the question given. There is a total of 15 questions, each very different. So the current order, and we will mix it up as we go along. We will start with Aidan, we'll go to Avesta, Gary when he joins, Gurpreet, Josh, Lara when she joins, Ollie, Theo, and then Tommy. So yeah, we can start now if everybody's good with that. So we'll start with Aidan. If you can unmute. Yes, hello. Okay, so this question is from Ashley, who is an independent councillor, and he has asked, do the candidates agree that electoral reform is long overdue and that Labour needs to put proportional representation front and centre in its next manifesto?
Well, yes, I would agree that electoral reform is long overdue. I mean, we've seen in the last few elections where we've gotten a lot of support, but our electorates haven't reflected that. Looking at other parties specifically, you see a lot of support for other parties, but they don't get the kind of representation they deserve. I think in terms of young voters in general, I think that young voters specifically vote for Labour a lot more. We have such a high young voter turnout, but at the end of the election and when we see the election results, we don't usually see that reflect it. So I think we do need proportional representation. So it's a more democratic system.
Right, okay, thank you. So next up is Avesta.
Proportional representation, that didn't do so well in the Weimar Republic, did it? Sorry, can you repeat the question again? Sorry,
Yeah, of course can. Do the candidates agree that electoral reform is long overdue and that Labour needs to put proportional representation front and centre in its next manifesto?
Yeah, sure, it's overdue, but not proportional representation, because we've seen in the Weimar Republic in the 20s, after 1919, it didn't do so well since governments were quite weak, and it allowed the extremist parties in the far right and the far left to get into the Reichstag. So, no, not proportional representation. But yeah, sure, electoral reform is overdue.
Oh, okay, thank you. And so Gary isn't here, so it's Gurpreet next.
Hello. Yes, I do agree. I think it is long overdue and something that needs to change, because, you know, when young people go out and vote, overall, at the end of an election, you don't see the amount of young people who voted or what goes on. And I do agree that it needs to change. You know, you can't stick with one system for a long period of time. Through time, everything changes. So I agree. Yeah.
Josh is next.
Yeah. When it comes to electoral reform, we need something new. First past the post clearly hasn't worked. I'm not too sure about proportional representation. You know, for one, I think the House of Lords needs to go and be removed and replaced with an elected Senate to make our system more democratic. I quite like the look of a presidential system. Maybe that is something that we could look into. I see in his face there, we need to explore all options. We can't just say, let's explore this option. It looks best. We need to look at every single option that there is on the table.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Next is Ollie. Is Ollie here? Where's Ollie?
Yeah,
gone? There
I'm
he
here.
is.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute and I started talking. Yeah, so I would agree. I think proportional representation in the UK is needed. It is not right that you can get well under half the votes in a massive, massive majority like Johnson has done. And I would disagree actually about the Weimar Republic. Like Yves said earlier, actually 40 out of the 43 European countries use proportional representation. A lot of them have strong governments, so it just isn't true. However, I would say that I would not put it front and centre in the Labour manifesto. People don't care about proportional representation. It's not a big issue. We had a referendum on it a few years ago. I think it was in 2011 or 2012. 42% of people turned out. People don't care, and we need to win elections.
Thank you. And next is Theo.
I do think the whole system is needed of electoral reform. I think PR is far more fair and democratic. It's just that plain and simple. I think also the House of Lords should be a smaller elected body and should not be rewarded on how much money you donate. I also think the vote should be lowered to 16 because as soon as you're able to pay your taxes, you should be able to decide what is done with them. But I do think with PR, though, it will be interesting to see how this affects all the political parties.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. And then Tommy, you're now.
Hi. So basically, I do agree with proportional representation. We do need a system that represents all people of the United Kingdom. So proportional representation is basically, in my opinion, the best system that is available to us at this moment in time without major electoral reforms, like replacing the House of Lords and replacing it with a Senate or a presidential system. I'm a member of the Labour campaign for proportional representation as well. So I have been campaigning for proportional representation around my area and in the whole of the UK.
Good, thank you. So the next question is, so we have done everyone, haven't we? Haven't missed anybody out. Yeah, I'll just take that as a yes. So the next question is from Kieran, who is a Labour member, and he has asked, how will you ensure that young Labour members like me don't leave the party after becoming disillusioned with the current membership? And we'll start with Avesta now.
Sorry, I disconnected halfway. Sorry, I was just moving devices.
Do you want me to say it again?
Yes, please.
Yeah. How will you ensure that young Labour members like me don't leave the party after becoming disillusioned with the current membership?
How will I pass? I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can pass if you're not sure on that one.
Sorry to jump in. Do you think you might mean leadership rather than membership? Because that's something I do hear a lot, but I've never heard anyone complaining about the membership.
Yeah, I think it might have been a mistake with leadership instead, actually.
Yeah, he's asking how will you stop people from leaving the party because they pretty much don't like the leadership.
Wait, is it still me? Or
Yep.
Can I just pass and go last or something? I need to think about that. Yeah.
I mean, everyone has to have a go at going first, don't they? So I don't think you can pass and go last, but I think you can pass and not answer.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, so do you want to? We can give this one to Gapri, and then you can start the next one if that's okay with everybody else.
Yeah.
I think in regards to that question, what I've experienced personally, a lot of young members want to leave because there's not much activity in the party aimed towards young members, and the party doesn't specifically ask young members what they want to do or how they want to get involved or what's important to them in the local area. So I think those are the aspects that I would target. I would specifically set up meetings with young members, ask what they want to change in their local area or nationally, and the issues surrounding them, because obviously issues for young members are different compared to members who may be of a different age group. So I would target those specifically.
Okay, thank you. Next is Josh.
Yeah. So what I would say is, because I'm mostly on the left of the party, I didn't vote for Keir Starmer, I voted for Rebecca Long-Bailey. I know how many young members will be feeling. Sometimes they don't like the new policies, sometimes they agree with them. And what I would say is, you stay in and fight for what you believe in, and just fight, because if you fight, in the end, you will always get something good out of it. I'm saying in the party, I'm running for the NEC to represent all young members. And if I am elected, even as a candidate, I want to go and speak to as many young members as I possibly can.
Okay, thank you. Next is Ollie.
Okay, so I've seen a lot of people leaving over the current leadership, and I think actually quite a lot of them have had it out for Starmer since he began in the role, and I don't want to undermine their concerns. I've had my differences with Starmer since he was elected, in the same way I have my differences with Corbyn, and in the same way that I have many, many differences with Boris Johnson. However, I think he was democratically elected. He has a huge mandate over Rebecca Long-Bailey and any other potential left candidate. So to say that people leaving is a huge issue, I would say that isn't true. It's a small minority of the membership. However, if you want change, you have to be in it to make that change. Okay, so yeah, I would say stay.
Thank you. And Theo now, please.
Well, I think, of course, I think you should try and stay as, well, for a start, if you're unhappy with the leadership's always change. No one is in power forever. On a personal level, if I was elected to the NEC as the youth member representative, I would try and make sure to have consultation with all the members as well as all the young member groups across the country, because a lot of the time, most of us just feel like we're nothing but campaigners and activists, and that we're not listened to. I think that's what needs to change, and that's why many of us feel this way.
Yep, okay, thank you. And now Tommy.
Hiya. So obviously, during the leadership election, I didn't support Starmer. I was campaigning for Team Rebecca Long-Bailey during the time. So basically, I don't like Keir Starmer very much, and I'm very open about that. I have had my indifference, but I am getting behind him to get a Labour government elected. But I think that the displeasure with 44% of members is called for, which is the 44% of members who didn't vote for Keir Starmer, which is just under a majority. So I hear you, and I'm here to represent all of you, not just the ones who voted for Starmer.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is from Simon. So the next,
from my account.
The next question is from Simon, who is a Labour member, and he has asked, how would you achieve your pledges if elected onto the NEC? So we'll start with Avesta now, please.
So one of my pledges was to ensure the voices of young Labour are heard, and I've created a Discord server in order to achieve that. So that makes me quite accessible. So unlike the current leadership, it's very difficult to get to Lara. So a Discord server would ensure young members could join and voice their concerns and make suggestions, and what else? Well, my aims. Yeah, and that was 10 seconds. Yeah, that's one of the main pledges, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. So next is Gurpreet, please.
Yep. So one of my pledges is that the whole membership process for young people needs to change. There needs to be a positive change where, you know, when young people first come into the party, they're welcomed with open arms. You know, they get a phone call to say welcome to Labour, and you know, how can we support you? How can we guide you? You know, what are the issues you're facing? Why do you want to be a member? You know, what's going on, and how can we help you? And you know, to represent and welcome all young people from all walks of life, from different backgrounds. And that is my main focus, is to revamp that process and just make it a bit better, a bit more welcoming. So young people, when they come into the party, they feel like they are going to be heard and listened to.
Okay, thank you. And Josh now, please.
So, as I've said in my campaign, you know, my campaign slogan is "We fight together." That's how we're going to get things done, because we're going to fight for it. You know, if the NEC don't listen to us, screw them. We're going to carry on shouting, and we're going to go to NEC meetings. We're going to go to CLPs. We're going to go to branches, and we're going to fight to get it done. Yeah, like Gurpreet said, you know, people want contact. It's not about giving them a phone call saying how we can support you. It's about, if they come up as a young member, giving them our contact details and saying, this is your youth member representative. You want something done, you go to them. This is your youth officer. Go to them if you want something done. We fight together, and that's how we're going to get things done.
Thank you. Ollie, please.
Yeah, so in terms of my pledges, you can see them on my Twitter, on my website. And I think I would achieve them by the fact and the virtue that they aren't factional promises. They are what young people want and what young people need. We need accessible meetings. We need young Labour to be detoxified. That's what we want and need, and that's what everyone wants and needs. And they're achievable by the rulebook. Clauses 8.3e, clauses 8.3n, they are all about the accessibility and equality, which involves young people as well. And to do that is something that can be done by the NEC. We have the power to do that through the NEC. And I'm not going to pretend I'm going to be really aggressive. It's a voting body. I'm not going to fight anyone physically or otherwise to pass motions on bullying. It's not going to happen, but we will do it through voting, a mandate, and through the promises being achievable.
Thank you. And Theo now, please.
Well, if you've seen my pledges, which I've posted on social media, I want to focus more on helping young members and offering more communication to them, and also trying to put an end to factionalism in the party, which obviously is going to be a huge ordeal. And the way to actually do this is cooperation, is actually talking, is actually respecting each other. So what I'm actually going to do is, when I go to these meetings, if I also get elected to the NEC, I'm actually going to be open. I'm actually going to be kind and responsive. I'm not going to try and instigate fights and insult other people's members or followers. That is the simple way to go about achieving what we need to achieve.
Thank you. And lastly, Tommy.
Thanks, Clark. So basically, how I'm going to achieve my campaign promises, my three main campaign promises are quite simple. One, I will never be silenced. Nobody will ever silence me, and I will always speak up about what's right. Two, more representation of young people. What I plan to do is obviously needs the approval of the NEC, which is to have constant discussion with young members and consult them on any decisions I'm going to make or have made. I think this is one of the key things, because it's always something to do. And my last campaign promise is a creation of a Young Labour Forum, which will be done via the Labour WordPress, again, if they allow me to.
Okay, thank you. So next question is from Jeremy, a Labour member, and they have asked, would you say you were on the left, centre left or right of the party? And we'll start with Josh this time.
Thanks. That's a really good question, actually, because we need to know where we stand politically. I personally, I'm on the left of the party. I believe in socialism. I'm also believing in progressive side of politics as well. So I am on the left side of the party, but we don't need to be labeling people. We need to be knowing how they're going to get out there and fight for young members, and about how we're going to represent them, not about, any political ideology. It's time to vote and nominate for who's best for this position, not for who's, politically matching them.
Thank you. Ollie, next.
I would say we don't actually need to know where people lie in the party. If you look at my promises and you like my promises, then you vote for me. If you look at Lara's promises and you like her promises, you vote for Lara. It doesn't matter if she is on the left or I'm on the right or I'm in the centre left. That isn't really relevant. It's about making a change that young people want and need within the party. And frankly, to call people kind of Blairite or Benite or any of these labels, it isn't going to get us anywhere. We need to unite and we need to put Labour in the fast lane to government. That's what we need to do. And not voting for someone because they're backed by Labour to win or not backed by momentum isn't helpful to anyone at all.
Yeah, thank you. And now Theo, please.
Personally, I don't think that's a good question. It's all these labellings and questioning each other of where we are in the party, which has led to 10 years of this Labour government and has led to 10 years of Conservative government. Sorry, I do wish it was a Labour government. And that has led to many years of Conservative government before the Tony Blair and Brown government as well. If we keep on labelling each other, we're going to continue to fight each other and have this terrible infighting. We need to start working on unification and opposition to the government instead of opposition to ourselves.
Thank you. Tommy, next.
I do agree with the point that Theo has just said, with it shouldn't matter where we are in the party and it shouldn't matter what our political think is, but in the efforts of openness, I'm going to disclose where I stand at the moment. So according to Political Compass, I'm the Libertarian left, and according to Lefty Values, I'm a progressive social democrat.
Thank you. Aidan?
I actually do think it's a good question, and I do find it funny that I've heard some comments about unification. If only Labour had a unified party in the last 5 years, then maybe we would have had some change. But, I would say that I am a democratic socialist, and I'm very progressive as well. And I do believe that those views are important for people to know, because you will see, like Jeremy Corbyn, for example, he's a democratic socialist, and he actually fought young people's struggles. And Keir Starmer at the moment, although I support him, I do not think that he will do as well, and I don't think he will do as much for us as other leaders will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Avesta?
Yeah, according to Political Compass, I'm Libertarian left, and according to 8 Values, I'm a Libertarian socialist. So yeah, I'm very progressive. Because I'm going into theoretical physics, and I think politics needs to be more progressive so we can go forwards in society and science. And I'm also anti-war, anti-NATO, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Gurpreet?
Yes, like Theo, Tommy and Ollie kindly mentioned, it doesn't really matter if you're left, if you're right, as long as you've got the promises, you offer people what they need. If you're going to do what's right, that's what matters. And like Brexit, people were labelled, are you Brexit, are you not Brexit? And look where that got us. It got us nowhere. So I that's where I stand, really.
Okay, thank you. I think
Sorry
that
to
was...
butt in there, but I can so agree with that point as well, because the whole Brexit argument as well.
It got us nowhere.
I
Like,
don't think you can take a little bit extra time to explain yourself.
I mean, that's not true at all, is it? Because we didn't get anywhere because we had a slogan.
I mean, even what a year later, we're still dealing with the debris falling from the sky of the meteor that's known as Brexit, isn't it? So
Yeah,
I think
firstly, that's my opinion, and I respect yours. That's my opinion. You don't have to like it. You don't have to support it. But that is.
We didn't say that we were going to get it done. We said that we were offering a second referendum. People didn't want that. People wanted to get it done.
This is a really, really bad look.
Yeah.
Really bad.
It's
Let's
true.
go on to the next question, please.
Yeah, I think just
I
move on, yeah.
admire everyone's passion, and eagerness to start debating. So thank you for that. That was actually quite nice to listen to. But let's get back on track. So we are on the next question. This one is from Stephanie, a Labour member, and they have asked, despite 3 of the leadership candidates being a woman, we once again elected a man to lead the Labour Party. As a young female member, it is important that we get more young women involved in politics. What will you do to get more women engaged in politics, and should the next Labour leader be a woman? So we're starting with Ollie this time, I think.
Yeah, so I think it is very, very important that we have proper diversity and proper representation in politics. And I think it is one of the great ironies and surprises of politics in the UK that the first 2 female prime ministers, the 2 and only female prime ministers, were women from the Conservative Party. And that's something which would take anyone by surprise looking at their track record. And I think actually what we can do to get more women in the Labour Party is part of my 3rd promise of reinvigorating young Labour. Having young Labour in the toxic state that it is not helpful for anyone. If you see online that Miriam is getting horrible anti-Semitic abuse on an almost daily basis, you're not going to want to join, are you? So we can sort that out. We can get more women in. We can run empowerment programs. We run training programs. We can get people involved that way.
Thank you. Theo now, please.
I think it is upsetting and embarrassing that the Labour Party has not had a female leader yet. In terms of actually female membership, I think it is sad to say that unfortunately female members seem to be the ones that get most abused, particularly thinking about Diane Abbott, sadly. I think what we need to do is work on the toxic culture, shifting that. Unfortunately, we'll always get criticised by people from across the political spectrum. But if we can make sure that we actually respect each other in our own party, that will help members feel more safe and make them want to join and stay.
Thank you. Tommy now, please.
So over my brief time of candidacy, I have been speaking to a lot of members, specifically in the Northwest region. And I think it's women and trans people who are the most affected by the completely and blatantly horrible current reporting system, because it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So if members are receiving abuse, we have to work on dealing it from within our party first, and then go out and deal with it with people who aren't in our party. On the point of engaging women in politics, we do need to get more women into politics, and we need to get more female MPs and more female, and we need to get a female leader in the future.
Thank you. Aidan.
Well, I do think it is shameful as well that we haven't had a female leader. I mean, we were so close to it this time. We had Rebecca Bailey, who was very close, but I don't think we should just elect someone because they're female. We should look at their politics and their views beforehand, because I think it was Oliver said that the only two have been conservative. But if you look at the two conservative that they were, I would rather anyone else. In terms of members, I've been talking to some constituencies in Kent and where I'm from, and the main problem that they have is that there's a view that politics is mainly for men and boys. I think we need to stop that kind of rhetoric. Do that, we'll have more females entering the party.
Thank you. Avesta.
I think the Labour Party should start imposing sanctions on those who who speak out against like hate messages on women and that sort of stuff, and because such things don't have a place in the party. And yeah, I do think there should be a woman being our next leader, but it might not be, and because this is a Democratic Party, and 10 seconds left. So another guy might be elected again. So we can't be sure if that's going to happen.
Thank you. Gurpreet.
Yep. I agree with what Aidan just said, that we do need a female leader, that it's important to represent people from all walks of life, all cultures, all races, and it's all genders, very important. But we can't just pick someone based on their gender or based on their race or whatever. It needs to, the person needs to be on their political background, and the sort of person they are, what they stand for, who they stand for, and what their policies are. And I think in terms of the abuse that's been going around online and all that sort of stuff, we need to just sort of cut that down, inspire that from within the party, welcome more female members, and just aim at the recruitment that way in a bit. But yeah.
Thank you. Josh.
It's upsetting that this party hasn't had a female leader. As I said at the start, I had backed Rebecca Long-Bailey in the leadership election. I had hoped that Rebecca would have been elected leader. Sadly, she wasn't. I think the next leader should be a woman, because that is one way that we're going to tackle sexism on the internet, by having a woman leader who's going to inspire so many other women as well who don't believe in the Conservative Party. Because the Tories have had two female leaders. It's time for Labour to have a female leader to inspire people. And that way, that is the strongest way we can tackle sexism on the internet.
Thank you. So I think that's everyone, but I do have a follow-up question myself, because I think that was really interesting. During the leadership, that period, I heard a lot of comments saying Keir Starmer looks prime ministerial. Is that because he's a man, or what are the reasons could that be? So I just want to see what your guys' opinions is on that, because I did hear that an awful lot. So we'll just go from top to bottom if anyone wants to express their opinion on that. So Aidan, if you have an opinion on that.
I mean, of course, I think the UK and a lot of other countries has such a problem with unconscious bias. Keir Starmer was one of the only men, and so many people, the media, went, okay, he's the prime ministerial one, even though there were females there. So I think there is a huge problem with unconscious bias that we are not talking about, and it's rooted in our country.
Avesta, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, it's quite biased. You can't possibly know if he's more prime ministerial than the other leaders, and that's quite unfair. It's just a very strange statement to make.
Gurpreet.
In my personal opinion, I think partially it may have been that because he's a man and he looks to be someone who is sort of that type of material. But I think some of his policies like economic justice, social justice, climate justice, all that sort of stuff, I think that also plays a very important part in terms of what other people think, and how that represents other people and how they link to Keir Starmer, and they think that he is the man who represents us with these promises, with these pledges. But yeah.
Josh?
Yeah, my comment on this is pure and simple. A man who wears a suit with a brilliant haircut isn't going to win us elections. We've seen in the leadership election, Rebecca Long Bailey was getting attacked, called Continuity Corbyn, and it's the women in the previous leadership elections that have been attacked significantly, and also in the United States as well. When Hillary Clinton ran for office, Donald Trump attacked her viciously, and we need to really tackle this hate for women leaders. And the way that we do that is by actually electing a woman leader as leader of the Labour Party, who's going to really step up and support MPs. I was really sad to see that Rebecca Long Bailey was released from her shadow cabinet position. She was arguably the most senior woman in Keir Starmer's shadow cabinet to hold a position. And I was really sad to see her go. That really sort of did lose the balance between men and women. Men are not going to win us elections. Women aren't going to win us elections. I'll tell you what's going to win us elections: coming together around a leader. That's going to win us elections. The way that we attacked Corbyn, that's not going to win us elections. The way that Rebecca Long Bailey was being attacked won't win us elections. A man in a suit with a nice haircut will not win an election.
Thank you. Ollie?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing here would be to actually ask your opinion, Janelle, because you are the only female in the call, and your perception of sexism is going to be far better than any of ours.
I am just going to have...
This is my question.
No, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put my foot down. The moderator has to remain impartial.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I would like to reclaim some time for that. So yeah, I think quite possibly there was unconscious bias there, and I think if you look at Thornbury versus Starmer, where Starmer is objectively less experienced than Thornbury, but people saw him as better, there is a strong case to say that. But ultimately, the public decides elections, so they apply the Downing Street wave test. Can you imagine him standing outside Downing Street? And while it is terrible that you can't be judged by the content of your character, instead you're judged by the way you look or your gender. We have to pander to the public to win an election. That is a sad fact of it. So that's what I can say on that.
Thank you. Theo?
Well, personally, I actually heard this quite a lot about all the candidates, but in particular reference to Starmer, I think sadly some of it was unconscious sexism. I think some of it as well was his actual policies, which maybe some considered a bit more to the centre left and centre of politics, as many in the country sadly do not want a left-wing government. I think also it was partly to do with his background before politics, perhaps being in law, and people thought that brought a sense of prime ministerial sort of look appeal to him.
Thank you, but I will just say in response to that, don't forget that Emily Thornbury, barrister as well. But that's all I'm going to say. Tommy?
So I understand that the news did put a load of stuff up about how Keir Starmer looks to be Prime Minister material and other stuff. I think that it is that the party itself does have a lot of unconscious bias, and I do stand behind Keir Starmer doing unconscious bias training with all parliamentary staff and MPs. So I do agree that there is a lot of unconscious bias there. And just to talk about one of the comments is, I wasn't just silencing Janine because it would because she's the only woman here, I was actually in response to talking about impartiality, because Janine does have to remain impartial, so I didn't want her to have to put her impartiality at risk.
Sorry, I completely agree. I was just saying, as a point, we are all blokes here, and we're not going to have kind of a sexism radar that Janelle would have. So that's the point I was making. I wasn't having a big go at you or anything. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to have this conversation afterwards.
If
you know,
anybody
we
wants
could
to
still-
find out about
yeah.
it, it's just a message to Janine. She's all over my Twitter feed with the mention her as moderator as well.
So I think everybody's spoken, so we'll get back to the questions now. So this one is from Sarah, who is also a Labour member, and they have asked, in your opinion, what is the biggest issue facing young people today? And we'll start with Theo this time.
Well, it's a big question. Well, I think especially today, and especially with the coronavirus, I think a lot of the big issue on young people's mind is going to be their future, in sense of job security, in sense of their actual financial security. I have seen the government sort of trying to help with incentives, but I think young people have always felt disenfranchised by this government. So I think a lot needs to be done to help young people after the coronavirus.
Thank you. Tommy.
So basically, I do think that the government does need to do more for young people during the coronavirus, and I stand by Andy Burnham, the Metro Mayor of Greater Manchester, with him releasing the young person's guarantee for after coronavirus is over. I think that's a wonderful thing to do, and young people need to guarantee jobs and other things. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Aidan.
But talking about the coronavirus specifically, I do find it a bit outrageous that the Labour Party hasn't said much on university fees, which myself and many other young people are still forced to pay in full by not getting the full kind of teaching that we would. But I think the greatest problem that we face as young people is climate change, and that's reflected by opinion polls and other pieces of data. I think that's what people care about the most. Young people care about.
Thank you. Avesta.
Yeah, I agree with Aidan. Climate change is certainly one of our bigger problems, since it won't be affecting older generations, but it will be affecting us in particular, because we're going to see the impact of climate change in our lifetimes, not necessarily theirs. So yeah, climate change is one of the biggest, and also overpopulation, because of the sea levels rising as well, which causes, which just result, and our increasing fertility rates. They all cause overpopulation, and that's become quite a problem in several countries. And it's going to become a problem in the United Kingdom as well.
Thank you. Gurpreet.
Yes, I think a lot of young people, especially, you know, because for them, the wider world is not as important. Yes, a lot of them go through family problems, mental health problems. And, you know, personally, from my personal experience, that is something that's to those young people very important. And for many opportunities to succeed within the education system, just the way things are, and job opportunities, affordable housing, especially for those who've decided to take the employment route for their success, and that's very important. I think those are the main issues that face the young people of today, and that need to be focused upon by local and national government.
Thank you. Josh.
So I believe that climate change.
Josh, just to pause you there, Clark, the image has gone off the stream completely. Okay, sorry, it's just not back on for me.
Oh, it's not. So, as I was saying before Tommy made his point, I believe that climate change is such a massive, massive, massive issue for young people, and it's going to be for the rest of their lives if we don't step up and do something about it now. Education, which involves tuition fees and the academisation of our schools, that is such an important issue. And you know, there's mental health in our young people, which is, you know, it's worrying, and we need to have extra support there for them. But let me be clear, we can't say, I think. We need to get out there and speak to young people and see what the issues are, and they can tell us, and we can do something about that.
Thank you. Ollie, next.
There are so many issues for young people. I mean, as a young person, I know it's employment, it's housing, it's debt, it's climate change, it's this government is feeling disenfranchised. There are so many issues, the list goes on. The fact that 17-year-old girls are the most likely to have been furloughed or made redundant by this crisis speaks volumes about the kind of employment we are in. I'm on multiple 0-hour contracts. I don't even have a contract for one of my jobs. Young people face so many issues that I don't want to say old people, but non-young people don't have to face as much. And it's scary. It is very, very scary that we have to go into this world. And I think the Labour Party has to position itself as the party of the young to succeed.
Yeah, thank you. So next question is from Matthew, a Labour member, and they have asked, many young people like myself voted to stay in the EU in 2016. As representative on the NEC for young people, will you use your position to push for Labour to remain close to the EU? And we'll start with Tommy this time.
Hiya. So basically, as you all know, the Brexit deal has already gone through, and basically it's going to be minimal contact with the EU. I think that there is a point that the EU is kind of a good trading body, but that the majority of people in the United Kingdom did vote for Brexit, which was 52%, which is very low majority. And I think, if we're honest, that there is need to be push for a trade deal with other countries, not exclusive to Europe. But there also needs to be customs deals and other things put in place. I'm all in favour for everybody working together and creating positive socialist change, as I like to call it.
Thank you. Aidan, now please.
Repeat the question, please. Sorry.
Yeah, of course. Many young people like myself voted to stay in the EU in 2016. As representative on the NEC for young people, will you use your position to push for Labour to remain close to the EU?
I think I would. If you look through this pandemic, you are noticing, and people are starting to realise, maybe we should be more aligned to the EU. And I think that Labour specifically should try to push for a softer kind of deal with Europe. I personally don't think the European Union is perfect. I think there's problems whereby corporations can take advantage of it, but I think we should still be close to it, and I will use my position on the NEC to fight for it.
Thank you. Avesta.
Yeah, I think we should definitely stay close to the EU, and leaving might also have its benefits, while also we can still be close to the EU by not being in it as well. And yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, thank you. Gurpreet.
Yep. I think, in my opinion, personally, as a young person at the time who wasn't allowed to vote due to my age, I would personally, still stay close to the EU, but keep in mind that the nation did decide, and Brexit has happened, but still continue to make trade deals, and progress with each and every country in the EU in different ways, and keep that going. So yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Thank you. Josh, now please.
So I would, on that particular issue, I would have an email sent out to young members with a simple yes or no. Do you want me to go to the NEC and fight for the party to be close to the EU? Personally, I was a Brexiteer. I think the EU is quite undemocratic. But I think we need a good deal with the EU. We can't have this Boris deal. By the sounds of it, it's absolutely awful, and I've no doubt said it is awful. So we need to get a new deal that benefits everyone. But I can't decide for young members. They've got to decide for me what I go to the NEC and fight for.
Thank you. Ollie.
Okay, so full disclosure, I am a media spokesperson for Stay European campaign, which is a campaign for associate EU membership. So I am a Remainer. I believe in the EU project. I believe in choosing community over isolationism and nationalism, as I'm sure we all probably do. And I think the fact that it has been projected that a no-deal Brexit would knock 9.3% off the UK economy permanently is very concerning. And we should not let that go through as a party. And we have to take a pragmatic decision. We owe it to the country as the Labour Party to choose community when we are coming out of this coronavirus crisis. It is the right thing to do, and we can't leave us out to the dogs because we voted in 2016 for a bad decision.
Thank you. Theo.
Personally, I do think we should be close with the EU, but I also think we should try and be close with everyone. It's working with everyone that's going to make the world progress more, that's going to be able to tackle climate change more. After all, climate change, does not respect borders. But I think also I would listen to young members on this. I'm not going to get elected and just ignore everyone's views. But I think in terms of my personal views, I would advocate for staying close with the EU, yes.
Thank you. So the next question is from Larry, who is also a Labour member, and they have asked, do you support votes at 16? And we will start with Aidan, please.
Yes, I do. I'm not sure I need to say much. I just think we should younger people vote, especially if we look at the Brexit problem. It was going to be something that affected my generation, our generation, and I thought that and I'll say then. So I think for the next general election and other referendums, I think we lower the voting age. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Avesta, now please.
Yeah, I certainly do think it should be lowered. Yes. People our age, at 16 and 17, are getting so active in politics in this century, in this decade so far. It's really unfair that they should still not be able to vote, despite being so politically active as well. So yeah, certainly we should definitely lower voting age.
Thank you. Gurpreet, please.
Yes, I think especially young people age of 15, 16 or 17, some of them may be coming to the end of their education or going on to their working lives, and, decisions that are made nationally that require voting, the age should be lowered. They should be allowed to vote. They have a say on what impacts their lives and how it can impact them. So yeah, I'd agree on that. Yeah.
Thank you. Josh, now please.
Yeah, I do support votes at 16. It is important that the young people get their voices out there. If people don't want to vote or they don't really care, they don't have to vote. We encourage them to vote, but they don't have to vote. but that minority should not close out the rest of young people. I do believe in votes at 16, and if I'm elected, I will go to the young members to confirm that that is what they want me to go in the NEC and fight for, and that's what we will fight for.
Thank you, Ollie. Now.
Yes, of course, I support votes for young people. It would be a weird thing not to support as youth representative candidate. I think it's both a pragmatic choice for Labour as a party that is supported most by young people. It's been done in Wales, it worked in Wales, it worked for the independence referendum in Scotland. And actually, for most issues, young people are going to have to foot the bill. We are going to see the effect of climate change. We are going to see the effect of leaving the EU. Whereas frankly, the people who turn out more and vote Conservative, they're not. They won't see it. So I think it is absolutely imperative that we have votes for young people. I think that's so important.
Thank you. Theo.
Well, I'll just reiterate, say again what I said earlier, which is I do think the vote should be lowered to 16. As soon as you're able to pay taxes, you should be able to decide what is done with them. Also, I know many young people that are far more politically active than people that are able to vote. And I think also, sadly, a lot of the time, things that are going to happen, whether it's leaving EU, whether it's climate change, whether it's housing policy or jobs, affects young people the most. And it's unfair that these decisions are taken and that they can't have any influence over it.
Thank you. And finally, Tommy.
Hiya. So yeah, I do support votes at 16, but there does need to be more education for children and young people to basically also so that they know how to vote. I'm very lucky that my mum has been taking me to vote since I was 5 with her into the polling station and showing me how it's done and stuff. I'm very lucky to have that. But I think schools do need to do more political education, which is why I also think that for votes at 16 to be put together, there needs to be a learning for life system on votes at 16 and political education and numerous issues to prepare children and young people for life.
Thank you. So the next question is from Curtis, who is a Labour member, and they have asked, as a 17-year-old, I face immense pressure to sit my exams with less teaching time due to COVID-19. Do you support the scrapping of exams? And we'll start with Avesta, please.
I do support it to an extent. While it was a student's duty at 17 to do your own studying, and I'm 17 myself, and I've been doing a lot of studying myself. But for people who don't have access to laptops during this time, do not have access to the systems and online, yeah, it should be scrapped. Yeah.
Thank you. Gurpreet, please.
No, I don't, in a way, because I believe that, you know, exams are important, yes, but it depends on what you're doing, what subject you're undertaking, and depending on that, you know, if you need extra support, the local authority should provide extra support to the school, so they in turn could provide extra support to the student. You know, in and you know, for those subjects, no, but for the subjects that are important, that, you know, you're going to matter the most to your life later on, yes.
Thank you. Josh, now then.
I do support the scrapping of exams, and we need to look at what our education system in this country has actually become, especially through academies and free schools. They have become test factories. You know, tests and exams don't show how smart someone is. You know what? Why do we need to judge how smart someone is? Can we not just judge them on the passion for what they want to do, what they want to study, for what they want to go on to do in life? I think it's the passion that really shows how well you can do that job and how well you can do in your future career. Not exam results, it's passion.
Thank you. Ollie, now then, please.
Yeah, so I think we do need exams, and I mean, next year I really sympathise with that year. I was one of the people who had their A levels cancelled, so I haven't been to school since March, and it has been great. But we need exams. They are a benchmark. They're the best method we have, and I'm sorry, Josh, but we can't base people off their passion, because I've met some very, very passionate people who couldn't outwit a fly. So we need to really, really consider how we do that next year. We need to consider how we do that in years to come. And I think more teacher assessment would be great, so people can't fluke a bad result or fluke a good result. But ultimately, for the time being, I would support keeping exams, because it is what we have and it is what works best for now.
Thank you. Theo.
Personally, I agree with Oliver that we do need to have exams in general. I think sadly, yes, it is mostly more a memory test than being smart, but it is really the only system we have. In terms of actually scrapping tests in terms of coronavirus, I think it's possible that they should more be pushed back, and the exams that perhaps aren't actually as important, that won't decide perhaps where you go to school or university, should be either scrapped or pushed back.
Thank you. And Tommy, please.
So I believe in scrapping of exams for school students. I don't agree with the total scrapping of the exams, mainly being I'm a home educated person. I have to sit my GCSEs to be able to get into college or get a job. So I do them off my own back. So I believe that there should be a two-tier system in place. One tier where you're able to take an exam paper, or a second tier where it goes off your coursework. I think that that is going to be the best thing to do, and I completely disagree with Theo and Ollie that standardized testing is the best thing for students, as it puts too much stress on them at this moment in time.
Thank you. Did we ask Aidan, or did we start with Aidan?
Your mic is there. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah. No, I haven't said anything yet. Guys.
Yeah, okay, go on then.
Well, I think in terms of coronavirus, exams should be scrapped, because I think young people are more worried about the pandemic going on and should care about their well-being a little bit more. In terms of testing and exams for the future, I think we should have a full review of Michael Gove's 9-to-1 GCSE system. I was the first year to do this new system. I think it is wrong. I think it is putting too much pressure on children, which will then in turn lead to more mental health problems in the future. That test, I think that we should have be a lot more simpler and a lot less strain on a young person's well-being.
Thank you. So this one is from James, who is also a Labour member, and they have asked, what will you do about the racism directed towards Chinese students being allegedly involved in the Chinese Communist Party? And we will start with Gurpreet, please.
I think it's not. I think, but it's totally wrong to judge someone based on their look or their race or their opinion, because everyone's entitled to an opinion. Everyone should respect everyone else's opinion, and I think in regards to that, there just needs to be more awareness, not just in our young people, but in our local communities, and everywhere else, on different cultures, on different on people from different walks of life, and I think that's what we need, is more awareness and ways that we can educate people, ways we can encourage people to learn more about others and their backgrounds.
Thank you. Josh.
So this is really a very delicate question, and it needs to be answered correctly, and it needs to be handled. correctly. And the way that we do that is by fighting together to stop it. You know, because someone believes in something that you doesn't, that doesn't automatically give you the right to be racist to that person. You know, it's wrong, because you know what? We're all human beings. We all have the right to our opinions. And we should all respect each other, no matter who we are. We do all deserve the same thing, and that is an equal path to opportunity. And, you know, I'm really saddened, actually, that we have racism targeted at Chinese students just because they were allegedly involved with the Communist Party, which is the ruling governing body of China.
Thank you. So Ollie next.
Okay, so I think xenophobia, especially right now following the coronavirus, is incredibly worrying, and we can't have it in the Labour Party. And I've seen from one of the other candidates who is not here today some very, very worrying comments on Twitter, potentially linking people who are just ethnically Chinese to the Chinese Communist Party, saying things like they don't support democracy, and saying things that there are swaths of Chinese students coming into our universities and influencing us. And I think that is completely unacceptable. And it is doubly unacceptable for that person to be running for NEC. I think it's wrong, and I think it is so concerning that that is seen as an okay view. And if I ever saw that or heard reports of that, there would be a full investigation, and that member would be expelled if the allegations were true.
Thank you. Theo.
Well, I think firstly, I am sad that this is going on. I think the main thing we need to do is a big, push for education on different cultures, on different people's views. Of course, people will have different views, but you need to respect them. I think also in terms of the actual abuse sometimes we see in the Labour Party towards Chinese students, I think we need to have a big rehaul on the abuse claims in the NEC and bullying claims, and we can try and kick out these people, but with proper investigation.
Thank you. Tommy now, please.
I apologise for that loud sound. I don't know where it came from, but I'm going to apologise to the people who were on the stream anyway. So I feel like, especially the racism towards Chinese students is really very, very significant during the times of the coronavirus as well. I think that there does need to be a reform in the reporting policy, because anything to do with hatred towards people of certain nationality should be treated with the highest respect, and it should also get a reply. I've seen people who have received transphobia and stuff, and they've not got a reply from the legal and governance team, which needs to be sorted out.
Thank you. Aidan.
I do agree with pretty much everyone that said that we need to be strict on it in our own party. I also think the main problems is that there's not a conversation about racism to Chinese people in this country. I think it's something that is rarely discussed. And I think if we, like we've seen with the Black Lives Matter movement, like we've seen with other movements looking for racial justice, I think we need to start mobilizing Chinese people and Chinese young students in this country in order to make sure that they don't face any sort of racism.
Thank you. Avesta.
Could you repeat the question? I don't know if it was aimed at the. Can you just repeat it?
Yeah, of course I can. What will you do about the racism towards Chinese students being allegedly involved in the Chinese Communist Party?
If this is aimed at members of the party, I think, as I said about the woman thing earlier on, more implementing sanctions of perhaps punishing the members who are in the party who make such comments, since this doesn't have a place, this shouldn't have a place in the party, and those who voice such xenophobia shouldn't remain in such a party.
Thank you. Did we start with Gurpreet? Honestly, my memory's terrible.
Yes,
we?
you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this question is actually from me. So for a while now, there has been concerns raised by members of the trans community regarding certain members of the Labour Party, including shadow ministers. A lot of trans members don't feel as though they are entirely welcome within the party. Some MPs have failed to stand up for trans rights, as well as oppose trans abuses, all while our leader failed to sign a pledge condemning any Labour support transphobic hate groups. What is your stance on trans rights and GRA reform? And if elected to the NEC, what will you do to support the trans community? And we will start with Josh.
Well, for me, and I hope for everybody, people who are transgender are human beings. Why do we need to label them as trans? Why do we need to label anybody? Because who someone is who they are. That's who they feel comfortable as. I want to welcome everybody into the Labour Party. Despite, who you are or where you come from, what your background is, you are welcome in the Labour Party. And my stance is that trans rights are humans' rights. Nothing should change just because someone may not be the same as someone else. And it really upsets me that, it's not the same at the moment.
Thank you, Ollie.
So I have signed the trans rights pledge, and I am keen to know how I could be a better ally. If anyone wants to come forward after this hustings and give me any advice, I am more than welcome. I'm more than open to that. I think the Labour Party has to be an ally. When 80% of trans people in the UK self-harm and half of them have tried to commit suicide, we need to do better than that as a country and as a party. When Lily Madigan stood in the Labour Party, she was called a monstrous insult to basic decency, and that is utterly, utterly wrong. And so I would stand by all the trans allies within the Labour Party, all the trans people within the Labour Party, and expel any members who are found to be transphobic or causing stirring or acting on hatred.
Thank you, Theo.
Well, I completely agree with everything Oliver just said. I too am proud to sign the trans right pledges. Well, I think what I'd try to do is open a dialogue to the community and also ask for advice and suggestions from trans members. I think everyone in the party, no matter if you're trans, if you're bi, if you're black, if you're from other countries, should always feel safe and welcome in the party. And that's what my main concern would be.
Thank you, Tommy.
So, as with Ollie and Theo, I have also signed the a Labour campaign for trans rights pledge, and I've been a long supporter of trans rights. Some of my close friends are trans people, and a lot of them do feel discontent with the Labour Party, being that there is some openly transphobic secretaries and chairs of CLPs. No transphobe should hold a office that is that high, and I actually think that all transphobic people inside the Labour Party should be expelled from the party.
Thank you, Aidan.
I also signed a pledge with the others here. And I think the first thing I should say is really disheartening to me when I saw the abuse Dawn Butler got for signing the same pledge. I think there's a problem when even Labour MPs show support for trans rights. If they're getting abuse, imagine how trans men and women are feeling in the party. I personally think that the message should come from the leadership. The leadership are not doing enough. They're not holding this government accountable enough to both trans and LGBT rights. I think it is a problem in this country, and I think it's because a conversation that's not been spoken about much until recently.
Thank you, Avesta.
Yes, I also signed the pledge. and I'm also a member of the community, like LGBT community myself, and I also think, yeah, there should be punishments for those in the party, regardless of whether you're a member or an MP or in the shadow cabinet. They should still be punished for expressing or just partaking in any transphobia, because this is it has no place in this party. It's 21st century. We shouldn't be having such beliefs, especially in the Labour Party. I mean, we would understand in other parties, but not the Labour Party. It's progressive. It's supposed to go forward. It's not. Yeah. So yeah. So that's, yeah. There should be certainly sanctions for all who oppose the transgender community.
Thank you, Gurpreet.
Yes, I've also signed the pledge, and I don't, I think as a transgender man or woman, it's important to be comfortable with, identifying with who you are, be accepted into the wider community, and it shouldn't have a place in our society, let alone the party. And we're all members of one community, and we should work towards progress rather than going backwards and relying on hate to target one another. And it's really sad to hear that 41% of trans men and trans women have come out and said that they've experienced hate or some sort of violence in the last 12 months. And that type of behavior, in my book, has no place in our party or in the community.
Thank you. So the next question is from Cameron, who is not a Labour member, and they have asked, how are you going to prevent youth disengagement, similar to the kind we saw before Corbyn's leadership win in 2015? And we'll start with Ollie this time.
Okay, so yeah, in 2017, it is absolutely undeniable that the reason for our very, very near success was because of youth engagement, was because of youth votes. And we can't let that slide, we really can't. So what I would do in the NEC is pledge number 4. I would run a youth training programme. Experienced Labour activists like the NEC youth representative, like the chair of Young Labour, would be able to come to young Labour members through short videos, through short training sessions, tell them what they know, give them advice, tell them how to doorstep, give them skills to use in meetings. We need to stop young people being sidelined and get them to the centre of the party with our socialist principles and a transformative manifesto.
Thank you. Theo.
Well, like what Oliver just said, I think we did come close to winning in 2017 because of young members. I too would try and organise a sort of educational programme for young members on campaigning, on activism. I mean, not just for young members, but for all members. I think also to actually listen to young members, to ask for their advice, to say, is there anything you think we should be doing, or anything you think we should be doing differently? So I think if we actually have a proper dialogue with young members, this will help them feel more engaged and happy to be a part of our party.
Thank you. Tommy.
Hiya. So basically, my idea of how to get rid of disenfranchisement of young people in the Labour Party is to make sure that all areas of the Labour Party and young people all have a young Labour group. Numerous areas, including my own area, do not currently have a young Labour group. The Isle of Wight does not have a young Labour group. Wakefield is only just getting a young Labour group, and it's the same with Pontefract and other places. And they're all struggling to get recognition that they are forming young Labour groups and they need help. So that's why I think Young Labour as well should have constant contact with young Labour groups. And I think the Youth NEC rep and Young Labour should help to set up young Labour groups in all local areas around the UK.
Thank you. Aidan.
I agree with Tommy. I do think we should have more young Labour groups in the country. And Oliver and I think it was Theo was right to say, yeah, we were close in 2017, and yes, it was because of high young voter turnout. But I think the question we need to think and ask ourselves is why they had such a high voter turnout. I would personally say it's because of the socialist views that we were pushing. I think it was because we were promoting free university fees. I think at the moment we have a leadership that are moving further and further away from our main socialist policies. And I think if we allow Keir Starmer to continue this kind of centrist politics, we're going to lose a lot of the young votes.
Thank you, Avesta.
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat? I have very poor internet connection. I just keep cutting out.
Yeah, that's not a problem. How are you going to, or is it that one? Yeah, it is. How are you going to prevent youth disengagement similar to the kind we saw before Corbyn's leadership win in 2015?
So I've already tried. I tried quite a lot. I've been campaigning for the promotion of my constituencies, young Labour groups, and for the creation of more groups such as creating an LGBT Labour for my constituency, and for other sectors like BAME and disability, and just to try to make sure more of the youth and just more of the youth in my constituency are engaged in this politics.
Thank you, Gurpreet.
Yes, I think some of the the points that Tommy, Theo, and Ollie all mentioned, I agree with that. I think young people need more tools. I mean, especially in areas that I've seen, especially my local area, there was no young Labour group. There still isn't today, and that's something we need to work on across the nation. Give young people a platform to join, give them the right tools so they can go out there, campaign, and because a lot of young people feel afraid, they feel shy to reach out and say, who's the youth officer or who's the youth person I can get in touch with, because young people are more comfortable with speaking to people who are the same age group. And I think that's what we desperately need across the nation is a platform for them.
Thank you. And lastly, Josh.
So we need a young Labour group in every area. And I would actually propose, and I hope that other candidates would have a similar idea, to create an action plan with Young Labour for setting up a Young Labour group for those constituencies that haven't got one, and reaching out to youth officers and saying, well, this is what we want this year. We want a Young Labour group, because for too long youth officer roles have been just used between the left and the right as factional gains for who's got the balance on the COP executive, and it's not fair on the young people.
Thank you. So our next question is from Megan, who is a Labour member, and they have asked, considering it is our generation that will be affected most by the recession, how will you centre the discussion of jobs towards providing opportunities for young people? And we will start with Theo this time.
Well, luckily I've been in many calls with the Shadow Chancellor, the Cooperative Party and Labour Business, who have all focused around this. I will not go out and pretend I'm some big expert in this field. I think what definitely needs to be done would be a big consultation on this, because I don't believe I should just pretend that I'm knowledgeable and end up messing it up for every young person. So I think what needs to be done is a big discussion on this, which I hope my fellow candidates will join me in as well.
Thank you. Next is Tommy.
Hiya. So basically, if elected, I would propose that the Labour government gets behind a motion to bring back the third of apprenticeships that was lost under Conservative rule on the gov.uk website. We've lost around a third of civil service apprenticeships, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I think that there does need to be more apprenticeships and more entry-level jobs for children and young people, as they're really hard to come across because a lot of jobs ask for experience, which means you have to know someone inside or have to have been doing it since you were literally 5.
Thank you. Aidan.
I think young people that I've spoken
Thank
to,
you.
sick and tired of the way we view jobs in this country. I think that people are tired of a system whereby you get a job to survive. I think people are tired of having to work too long. I think we have to completely have a big conversation about that kind of thing. I think we need to raise the minimum wage to at least £15 an hour, because at the moment people are living a rent. I think young people are worried about how they're going to mortgage sooner because of the wealth inequality and things like that. But yeah, I think when we look at wealth, when we look at jobs, I look at it in a new system and not the system of yesterday.
Thank you. Avesta.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Tommy and Aidan. Apprenticeships are have decreased quite a lot, and they're quite competitive as well now. Especially in certain areas such as theoretical physics. And I also do support the raise of national minimum wage as well. And yeah.
Thank you. Next is Gurpreet.
I agree with the points just mentioned before, and just adding on to those, I think we need to also educate our young people on the choice of career paths that are available to them out there, because I think a lot of young people are just confused in terms of what their choices are going to be. Are they going to go to uni? Do they need to take on an apprenticeship? And if so, what is it going to be? And I think a lot of the apprenticeships need to be more readily available to young people from the get-go, from the time they leave school or from the time they leave college. And there needs to be equal opportunities. And I think all employers should be, made to take part in the apprenticeship schemes so they can take on more young people, and so it's diverse.
Thank you. Josh.
So there's, on the apprenticeships point, we can sort of link that in with the scrapping of exams, because what you'll find is, especially with me, for those who have not got that high of exam results, they are rejected apprenticeships because they haven't got, good grades. I've not got good grades because I'm more of a get out there and do it person than I am an academic. So that my grades went against me, because I've not got high grades. I've got good grades, but not high grades. But you know what? We really need to make the economy work for everyone, because at the moment it's just working for the wealthy, and that is not right.
Thank you. And lastly, Ollie.
So I think obviously employment is the watchword at the moment. 2.1 million people were unemployed in April, which is a record high, and that's up 70%. And as I said earlier, I think it speaks volumes about young employment, that 17-year-old girls were most likely to be furloughed or made redundant. And from my own experience, we have 0 hours contracts for young people. So to get young people employed, I would make a government scheme where there are no more unpaid internships. We subsidize those internships. We need to get young people skills. We need to have them in apprenticeships, internships, university. We need geographic mobility. So we need to invest in transport, and we need to get the economy going with massive investment, because you can't get young people into work until you've begun to chip away at that figure of 2.1 million. Otherwise, we will suffer from chronic unemployment, and we need to get those jobs back after this crisis.
Thank you. Next question is from Sean, a Labour member, and they have said, over the past decade, we have seen massive cuts to mental health services for young people, And with the current difficulty that young people are facing while dealing with the child and adolescent mental health support service, such as waiting lists and inadequate support, what is your position on what Labour could do and should do next? And perhaps what kind of policy the party can look at for the next manifesto to ensure that young people receive the support they need? And we will start with Tommy.
Hi, so I think it's completely and utterly immoral that the mental health service is underfunded at the moment. I've been at the brunt of this by accessing CAMS a few years ago and other things. Just to state some statistics, 52% of LGBTQIA plus people face self-harm throughout their lives, and coronavirus has perhaps made this a lot worse for a lot of people. I know when speaking to clinical psychologists and counsellors, a lot of people have developed anxiety and other issues, but I think we do need to fully fund our NHS, especially for a lot of young people, and target younger people with the funds.
Thank you. Aidan.
I think as someone who has mental health issues themselves and have had to try and go through the kind of counselling and care system that they have in this country, it is just so blatant that it's underfunded, not enough staff for it, and there's not enough training for people that want to get to do so. I think the party needs to be clear that we do not want to privatise NHS. I think we need to stop giving contracts, NHS contracts to companies. We need to actually invest in our mental health scheme, because from what I've seen, it is not very good. There's easy ways to fix it.
Thank you. Avesta.
Yes, it's quite frustrating, these cuts, because it has a quite a damaging impact onto patients who are facing mental health problems and such, since they can also face the problem of getting discharged due to understaffing and that sort of thing. And I faced that as well myself a couple of years ago. And we should certainly, the party should certainly try harder to do the opposite of cuts and funds more, and make it more possible to make it more 10 seconds left. Oh well.
Thank you, Gurpreet.
I think it's wrong to cut out mental health services to young people once they turn 18, because as someone who's faced PTSD for several years, and thankfully to the help through different mental health services, I've coped with that. But I think young people should be supported. They should be given support regardless of their age or their whether or not they meet the requirements to get those help, because mental health problems don't discriminate. They don't care about age. They should be helped through and through. And I think more young people should be trained on how to help others, how to help people in their community, help other young people. And I think that's something that the government should support.
Thank you, Josh.
It really is disgusting that this Conservative government has made cuts to the mental health services. Something to start off that I'd like to see a Labour government do is, when we start to fund our public services, our schools and everything properly, I'd like to see every school take on a school counsellor, or maybe even two, or have a stronger support network. And, even in the community, we need a much stronger support network that is properly funded, that has people that are accessible. And, we really need to step up on this, because we've not stepped up for a long time, and it's time that we stand up and fight for people with mental health.
Thank you, Ollie.
I am very, very fortunate. I've never suffered serious mental health issues. I've never had to be admitted. I've never had to seek help. And I feel so lucky for that. And following the COVID-19 crisis, my concern is that as the Tories are forced to fund the NHS better, they will take some of that money from mental health services, which are less in the spotlight than kind of critical care and all the things which we are seeing are inadequate at the moment. And so I think Labour has to fight for the funding and the nurses and the doctors who work in the mental health wards. We owe it to people. If I ever develop mental health issues, I want to feel confident that we have the systems there. And currently I don't. And hearing from those of us in the call who have had to deal with them, it does not inspire confidence. And I think that is incredibly sad.
Thank you. And lastly, Theo.
Well, I am also very disgusted and upset at this government cutting investment in the mental health services. I do think obviously Labour needs to fight for this investment to go back into mental health services. I also think there needs to be far more training for people in schools and universities, also just in the general workplace, to recognise mental health issues and to also instruct people on how to help one another. I do think also it is sad that in the workplace, it's like, oh, you're ill, yes, you can have a day off. But if you're facing problems of your mental health, then no, it's I don't care, you have to still come into work. I think that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. So this is our last question, and it's from Alfie, who is a Labour member, and they have asked, what will you do to make sure Labour remains a party that is fully committed to socialism? And we will start with Aidan, please.
Well, I think the first step is to vote for a youth NEC candidate that is actually a socialist and truly believes in the socialist policies that have been forward in the last 5 years. I, like many other young socialist members, are very worried about the way that leadership are taking things. I think their lack of voice on the Black Lives Matters protest has been awful. And I think that if we want our party to grow, we need to adopt the policies that we've had. And because I'm a socialist myself, I will truly fight.
Thank you. And we'll go to Avesta next.
Yeah, sorry, this is embarrassing, but can you repeat the question again? It's so annoying. Yeah, please.
Yeah, of course. What will you do to make sure Labour remains a party that is fully committed to socialism?
Well, if we, I would try my best as an NEC rep to further unite this party, since we will be much more successful if we are united, not just united like we are right now. And yeah.
Thank you. Gurpreet, please.
The foundation of socialism is the concept of community, and I would ensure that everybody across the board is equally represented. Younger people are given equal opportunities within the party. They're supported, and they're listened to at every turn, and their voices are heard, and their opinions to let the young people know that their opinions matter, their choices matter, and that everybody's equal.
There you go. Thank you. Josh, please.
Well, the first thing I would do is I would aim within the first 4 months, let's be realistic, the first 4 months, to go and speak to every young Labour group that there is, to talk about, their political views, their stance on what the fight for socialism is. I think when we're talking about fighting for socialism, it's important that it's not being used as a factional gain by the left or the right of the party. And, I would go and speak to the Labour members to see how they wanted to go forward, how they wanted to fight for what they want. And then we take that to the NEC, and then we work together with other comrades from trade unions and NEC members, and we create an action plan on how we fight for these things.
Thank you. Ollie.
Sorry, Janelle, I completely tuned out and missed the question. I was tweeting at someone.
That's okay. So the question is, what will you do to make sure Labour remains a party that is fully committed to socialism?
Okay, so I think obviously the fight for socialism and transformative policies are needed, and we need to completely turn the policies of this current government on its head and start being a real government in real power, doing real things that affect real people. However, I think we need to engage more in winning elections and not winning the moral argument. It feels good to win the moral argument, don't get me wrong. I think we can win elections and win the moral argument, but doing things like promising free broadband, which actually wasn't a bad promise, but saying it only a few days before the election, I think that was a mistake, and it makes us seem like we're talking more to ourselves than the electorate. So we need to get that fight correct, and we need to instigate it right.
Thank you. Theo, please.
Well, I think I would start off by trying to talk and establish dialogue with young members and young Labour groups across the UK, and indeed try and talk to members of all ages and backgrounds about what they think we should be doing to fight for our socialist ideals. I'd make sure to advocate for socialism on the NEC. I'd also, like what Oliver has just said, make sure that we actually implement these when we get into government and choose wisely what we decide to put in our manifesto, as sadly it is what we say rather than what morals are that get us elected.
Thank you. And finally, we have Tommy.
Hiya. So as I said before, I'm a strong democratic socialist. I do stand for democratic socialist policies, which is what the Labour Party was brought up to be about. We are the Workers' Party, and we've got to support all our trade unions, all our people who work in essential services, all people who are in the workplace. We should always stand up for their rights first and foremost, but we should also be working on strong socialist policies to enable us to be the party of the people as well. Because under the Conservative government, there has been a lot of relaxation of rules that have had negative effects on people, and including the current getting rid of free TV licenses for pensioners, which is completely immoral because they are probably the people who need it most.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's it. That's all of the questions out of the way.